Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the tie to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneurial. Hey, Thomas Helfrich back again for the Never Been Promoted show here on podcast, YouTube channel. And we're going live on across a few different social media outlets. This is, I think, a third or fourth one today. I can't remember. Little cough just for security. Today, we're going to meet with David Beavis. So this is all about art and entrepreneurship. David might be the first artist you've ever met that's making money. And he's going to explain how he did that, all his secrets. No, he's not going to give you all his secrets. He's actually an incredibly talented artist and photographer. He's going to talk about all this in his galleries that are in Park City, Utah, I believe, and in Naples, Florida. Before we get going, if this is your first time here, I want to be clear on our mission. It's to help entrepreneurs, millions, if we can do it, get better at entrepreneurship. And the metaphor of cutting the tie, see what I did there? Cut the tie to all the things you are getting held back by. And you might not even realize some of them. It could be people in your life, and some of the closest people in your life sometimes will hold you back. It could be yourself, which is definitely that as well. But there's, the excuses you're making, the fears you hold on to, the maybe sense of entitlement you feel. There's a lot of things you're going to need to do to really be successful. And I'm really here to help kind of break through that a bit. There's plenty of how-tos, do these, do that's out there. But if you don't work on some of the things that hold you back, you're never going to go far as you really want. And David's a great example of success. And he's got a great accent. We're going to bring him on here to stage in 12 seconds because my only call to action here is go to YouTube, do a subscribe at Never Been Promoted. And let's throw a second call to action in. If you listen to this podcast, give it a 5-star. It means so much to the community, myself as well, and all the missions we're trying to do. And if you don't like the show for some reason or you want to improve it, get me on LinkedIn here. But let's bring David in. Enough shameless plugs here. I feel dirty every time I do shameless plugs because I'm not even sure they work. Then I feel less dirty, but I still kind of feel dirty about it. David, how are you?
I'm doing great. And as an Aussie, mate, it would be remiss of me if I didn't say g'day, mate. So how you doing?
Good day. I was going to tell him about your Alabama accent. And then do people actually ask you where you're from, or do they just assume you're
all the time? I get accused of being an Englishman, a New Zealander, all sorts of things. But I'm an Aussie from Perth, Western Australia.
Yeah, it's different than Melbourne. You know that draw, and Sydney's a little harsher. I can see that. I can see possibly the New Zealander one a little bit. I think it's more similar.
Yeah, there you go. A little bit. We have a wonderful rivalry, and we like to joke and tease one another, the Kiwis and the Aussies. So it's a good thing. A lot of fun. Love them.
Does Perth have a rugby team?
They do. I think it's called the Western Force. They come into the league. We haven't been there for 10 years, and that's basically when they started coming into Perth, I believe. On the West Coast with more Australian rules football, which is a different brand of football.
Footy.
Footy. And that's bigger on the West, but it's making inroads, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's good. It has nothing to do with art, for sure. But okay, so hey, before we start here, first and foremost, thanks for coming on. This is you're a very unique guest because you own a gallery. You I believe the picture behind you took the series of pictures. Can you just take a moment to just talk about what you have today, and then just back up to wherever you'd like to tell your story. This will be a little different kind of interview if you're listening here because you're a different kind of entrepreneur for sure. And so just go ahead and start. I'll be quiet. You'll solo it out, but meet David Beavis.
Yeah, sure, mate. It's a long story, and I'm trying to remember where to look on the camera, but I got the light shining. But I'm 56 now, and I can take you back to when I was 12. And the age of 12, us Aussies, we like to travel, and my parents took my 2 older brothers and my younger sister and I to Europe for 2 months vacation. And they gave us all a camera, and that's where my love affair started with photography. And I won a competition at the age of 12 from a photograph I took of Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. And anyway, forward on a few years, I wasn't a great student. I always used to be one of those guys that would look out the windows dreaming of playing footy in the backyard or or something like that. And I left school at the age of 15 to start work in a camera store. From there, I left that and started doing a press cadetship as a press photographer, and found out fairly quickly that I didn't want to be putting a camera in people's faces that didn't want to be photographed, and transitioned there from to weddings and portraiture, and worked out pretty quickly that if I do weddings and portraiture, one, it's going to take up the time which I want to play sport on a Saturday afternoon. I didn't want to do that, and I felt my audience was limited to that family or that particular person I was taking a photograph of. And my joy has always been capturing the beauty of God's creation and doing landscape photography. And the guy that was mentoring me at the time was one of Australia's premier portrait photographers. And I asked him, do you think I could make a living by selling landscape photography? To which he answered, no. I took that as gospel and pretty much put the camera down for quite a few years. And it wasn't until the age of 30, my wife and I were taking a 7-month trip around the world. And I walked into a gallery in Colorado in the Denver airport, and it was a very fine photographer, world famous nature photographer called Thomas Mangelson. And my jaw dropped, and my comment to my wife is, it can be done. And I said, one day I'm going to do this. And I went and bought a camera again, and I started refining my craft. Side note, all that time I transitioned to the financial service industry, and I did that for a total of 27 years. In 2010, 2011, my wife and I decided that, if we're going to do this, well, I decided with my wife's blessing, let's put it that way, that I wanted to fulfill. And we shortlisted a few states in the US. I wanted to move to the US. I felt that would be a better market, and I always wanted to experience the world a bit more than living in one place, right? So in December 2015, we opened the doors of my first gallery on Main Street in Park City, Utah. So fortunate enough now I have a wonderful team running that, and that's 8.5 years in now. But a cool story of that one is that in February of 2016, I'm working the gallery. I'm doing everything at that time. I'm shooting, I'm printing, I'm whatever. I was manning the gallery, and I look up, and there is Mr. Thomas Mangelson, the man that re-inspired me way back those years, standing in my gallery looking at my work. So
you didn't know he was coming either.
I had no idea, because he has a gallery just down the road from me in Utah. And
you were taking business from him. He's like, who is this guy?
Yeah, who knows? But I went and shared my story with him and thanked him for his inspiration to me. And he was kind enough to invite me down to his gallery for a function that night, and gifted me a couple of his books and encouraged me, which was wonderful, So I try and encourage others that have a dream and to pursue their passions to do the same thing. Then forward on, a few years ago, we moved our family to Southwest Florida in Naples. And right now I'm sitting in my second gallery on the beautiful Fifth Avenue, which we opened up 3 months ago. And the image that behind you, you're only seeing a section of it. It's about a 5-meter image, which takes up the whole wall. My images are known for their size and texture in them and so forth. But all that to say, mate, I'm living my dream, right?
I thought you'd be known for your hair. I mean, at this point, 56, full head of hair, no fading. It's amazing. There
you go. I think
we should photograph that as like nature's blessing right there. Just like pop line over.
There you go.
That's probably a market. You just took pictures of head, like the top of a head.
Yeah, there possibly is, but it's probably not for me to do, right?
No. You're. Do you find? I have to ask. In Florida, it's a different world for landscape. Are you still actively looking for that next shot?
Yeah, absolutely. Always looking, mate. I'm in my happy place when I'm out in creation and looking for just beauty. And beauty can be found anywhere. It really can. And it's certainly different to living in the mountains of Utah and being close to, Wyoming, Montana, and those beautiful parks up there. And Utah has so many beautiful national parks itself. It's a totally different environment here, the flat landscape. But we have the beauty of the ocean, and we've got the Everglades and the wonderful summer storm clouds that come in. So there's beauty everywhere, right? But I'm, as I say, I'm living the dream where I'm in a position now. I have a wonderful team that, manages my galleries and allows me to free up my time to, if I feel led to jump on a plane and go and photograph something, I have my wife and family's blessing and the blessing of the business to be able to do that. So just
do you have I want to get into the business of art in a minute here. I'm just picking your brain here because you're wired differently as artists. Like I was sharing before. I have to do this because I promised my daughter I would do this. My daughter has this really good weird, I don't know what you call this. I call it Zen art, but she does these by hand and she does them pretty quickly. And I'm like, she's like, how do I, can you sell it? I'm like, I'm not going to sell it. I'm like, I'm going to buy every one of them for you and then figure out a way to sell them when you're super famous later. But anyway, I tell her that because the artists are wired differently, because I couldn't train to that. And people couldn't, I don't think, train to what you do, even though you might say they can maybe, but I doubt it. I think it's just there and you have to discover it. But in that, is there like the money? Because you don't have it behind the background. You have a shot you showed me when we were off camera at one point of 3 horses, perfect, or 5 horses, something like that, perfectly lined up, wild horses. And you said that's like once in a 10 million shot or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish you had that because I don't want you to move cameras and stuff, but maybe we'll share it later. But you took that in the moment, and there's no like editing. Like you caught the perfect balance shot of these horses running. And
Correct.
So what's the money shot you're chasing next? Like what's the one you're like, I have not captured like the blooming of the, whatever, the orchid in Japanese.
That's hard. Yeah, very hard one to answer, right? Because moments present themselves, some moments that you can never foresee. And I think part of it is allowing yourself to be in a position to experience those moments. Does that make sense?
It does. That means you always have to have a really expensive camera on you.
Well, that's true, but that short shot that we're talking about is called Take the Lead. So if people want to look at my website, they'll see that one. But had I not, at the time we were, financially strapped somewhat, and I said to my wife, I feel like I need to jump on a plane and go to southern France to photograph the wild horses of Camargue. And her response was, you don't do wildlife. And I said, well, I believe I do now. I feel I should. So
I think I just told you I
had no business spending that money. And I went there and I got some magnificent shots, and Take the Lead being one of them. And that's what I'm saying. You've got to put yourself in a position to have those moments. And I was fortunate enough to be presented that moment and got that shot along with a whole bunch of other ones, which I call my white horse collection. And they've been super, super good for us. We won a lot of international awards for those. And just powerful images of nature, So,
absolutely. Here, let me see if I can do it. This is the shot, if I believe correctly, right?
That one's called Unleashed. But
okay, so here I'll find it. Let me remove something here from me. Hide that. Make this so. Hold on. That right there. That's nice. So if this is the one right here.
That's the one. Take the Lead.
Look at this.
How cool is that?
So talk about this, and you can see it at davidkbeavis.com. This is very cool. Tell me why that's a once. I think did you call it once in a million? It was some crazy number you said. Like you don't think you could ever replicate it. So
no, not at all. Not at all. Reason being, so I was working with the guardians, and the guardians are the people that look after these horses and manage them, and basically they would corral them to do a run, and would I'd capture some images, and then the horses start moving their way back to where they come from. So they're all in different positions. So, I thought, let's see what happens in this situation. And, that particular one where all their legs are synchronized and so forth, I haven't had the measuring tape out, but their heads are equally spaced pretty much. All their legs are in, and that was just a split second, and only got that because I was using multiple frames per second. But I remember showing the Guardian, one of the Guardians, that shot, and he was like, "Wow, never seen an image like that." So that's just
when you took it though, did you know you had it?
I believed I had something special, and then as a photographer, your mind immediately goes to, "Wow, I just hope that is sharp and in focus," because sometimes we miss that.
You're still like trying to look at it, and
yeah, and there's nothing more heartbreaking for a photographer that you've got an image, but it's slightly off in focus, or some element that you've missed, and you can't go back and repeat it. It's heartbreaking.
now,
I've had
technology.
moments like that where I've been in tears. So
Yeah. Well, can you unfocus it though? I mean, can you take it and use technology to focus the shot where post edit?
there is elements of that with AI now. They have some sharpening things, but if you're way off, there's no way that I can see that
Gotcha.
being done. It can do it to a certain extent, but you've got to have the, it's got to be pretty good to start with. That's been my experience anyway.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you take a shot like that. Now flip it over to the business side a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you do with? Okay, so you have a gallery. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna start small. Like, hey, you got this amazing shot. Maybe you have a series of them. Take me through the artist entrepreneurial piece where, just to take me through it. Like, do you start with one? Do you need 10? How does somebody who can do something, draw, paint, photography, whatever, take it down the monetization path? What's the career path in reality?
Yeah, that's a real good question, Thomas. I think it's getting your work in front of people, and what I mean by that is that there are many, many, many wonderful photographers and artists that are struggling, and hopefully this can be an encouragement to them, because I've been there. Doesn't matter what sort of art, if you're not getting eyes on your work, you're not going to sell it, right? So, back in Australia, I was wanting to display, but the rents on gallery spaces in Australia and so forth per square foot, and we only have 25 million people there. I always felt that that was really rolling the dice in terms of the financial commitment. So I would do shopping mall displays and so forth, and so I'd go and sit in a shopping mall for a week, and people love the work, and I might sell a few, but that's hard yakka setting up at a mall every week, right? So that's not what I wanted to do. My dream was to have a gallery that people could walk in and go, wow, and thankfully that's what we've been able to do. So all that to say, there are many photographers out there that I believe could make a wonderful living, but haven't had the resources, perhaps, or going back to your opening statements, there's something missing, and sometimes that might just be the courage to do it, to pull the trigger, right, and take that risk.
Well, and I don't have an economic sense. I think I would have to guess many, what do you call it? Artists wouldn't. When you say get eyeballs on it, there's one thing to build your own channel, social media. I think people can kind of get that, but to get in and get featured, my assumption is it just comes down to also network. Have you shown up enough other galleries? Have you helped other art owners? Have you gotten your stuff noticed and taken, like, set up proper time, done the business things? Like, I'd like to show you these things, get your opinion of where I could put them on, and get to know, like, is it part of that too? Is just like good old fashioned networking of I've met David several times. No, my work isn't he's recommended me to this person next. Like, is that how it works, or is it really like not that? I
not for me. I've never done that. And to be honest, mate, when I opened the doors in 2015, I really had no idea what I was doing. So put that into perspective. I uproot my family at the end of 2013 with our 4 young children, and we moved to the other side of the world, to a town we knew no one, right? And here I am going to start a business that I know nothing about in terms of pricing and marketing.
And you're just betting that someone's going to like your stuff.
I'm rolling the dice. Yeah.
How do you even price that? Is that based on your rent, or just based on what the market? Like, how do you even price a picture like that?
it was interesting. I did what, and here's one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that sometimes we look to spend money or think someone's going to spend money based on what we have in our wallet, right? So I would think, okay, well, I'm not going to spend, I wouldn't spend any more than $3,000 for a picture, or an image. So that's what I'm going to price it at, right? But other people might think, well, if it's only $3,000, it can't be that good. Does
That's
that make
crazy to me.
sense? So
Like I'm thinking like a few $100. Like my limit's like I get a reprint for like 200.
Yeah. So the perception aspect is what I've learned, and since I opened the doors, if I had left those prices, the doors would have closed pretty quickly, right? So
what would that painting go for when you sold it or when you were selling? Give me an idea. Oh, sorry, painting. Sorry, picture. You have texture on it. I want to get to. What did you sell that one?
Well, back then I didn't have the textured, so it was beautiful archival inks on canvas, and for a 70 by 52 inch, I would sell for 2,800. Now, didn't make any money on them, right? And
Well, you don't make money on a wait. How do you not make money on that? Like because of the other overhead, or
you're making money on the individual piece, but by the time you add in your rent and so forth, you're not.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Okay, so
all right.
For a retail store, you would not survive. You would not survive. So thankfully, in Park City, Utah, it's full of galleries, and I had multiple other galleries coming in. You're pricing yourself too low. So I adjusted the price and I sold some more, and I did that about 4 or 5 times. And I thought, right, I'm just jumping right up to this number here, and that's where we're starting. And now we sell more at that. And basically, as my images go through the edition, the price keeps rising now. So that's been a long journey to understand that and understand the value of it. But
your time.
Sorry.
Well, you're doing reprints too, so it's a different game for a photo, and you texturize them. Is that right? Because the ones you show now, I have post print, you have a different look on them now. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
It's in the printing process. It's my immersive method that I pioneered with the production company that work with. I shared some vision with them, and what I wanted to do is be able to take photography to a new level, and that was to add texture and so forth on it, so it gives it more like a 3D effect. So the image behind me is a forest in Western Australia. I shot this back in November of last year, and knowing that I'm going to have this big wall here, so this is 190 inches wide, and on it you can the bark of the tree, you can actually feel the bark on the tree, and you can see the leaves and have the texture on the leaves and so forth. So it's an incredible new method I've been using for probably 4 years now. Thankfully, I haven't seen any other photographers using it at this point, but it has become a favorite for our collectors, that's for sure. So we still have our canvas. We do some on what we call face mount acrylics, but people are just jumping on these ones now and really enjoy taking photography to a new level.
They look real. So what's the printing like? Do you have your own printers, or do you have to outsource that? Talk about the kind of the operations.
I do have my own printer, but I just don't have the time to do that anymore. So I have my production company. They do all that for us, and they produce it. And we have a studio that prints, they frame, they box, and they ship all over the world for us now. So it allows me to be out shooting and doing what I need to do and creating more art, and they're able to take care of that for us. So it's a wonderful thing.
So you come up with your own ideas of what to go film based on, or shoot based on, I would assume, trends, or just what your feeling is, or what you know, or you've seen, or ideas. Do you ever have some customer come up and be like, hey, I'm going to pay you 4x what a normal picture costs if you can go get this shot?
Yeah, people have brought that sort of opportunity to me. I haven't, accepted that at this point in time, because it can take quite a lot of time. And again, I look at that and, well, perhaps my market is that one person, right? That one shot. My family time is super valuable to me, and I think, well, if I'm going to spend four days away from home, I want to get multiple shots that I can sell multiple times, as opposed to one shot, if that makes sense, right? So
It does.
I'm very protective of my time for my family. They're number one to me. And so that's what we roll. But in terms of what I'm looking for, the experience that I want people to have when they walk into my gallery, whether they are a collector or whether they're just wanting to get lost in the moment, right? So we live in a crazy, busy world, and we have noise coming from all directions, and it's not that peaceful at the moment. And I want people to come and get lost in an image and what I say is God's creation. On my logo, Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the way I look at it, if that wasn't done, we don't have anything. So I want people to come and get lost in the beauty of an image, and whether they collect that or not, but they walk out, they go, wow, what an experience, in the way we have treated them with our art consultants, how they have enjoyed the art. I just want them to have a wow moment, right? And just get lost. And for those that do collect my work, I try and create pieces of work where, again, they can get lost and have a quiet time in their own office, their home, whatever it is, and they just get lost in an image, and it brings some peace to them. So that's my objective.
Do you have a couple yahoos that come in occasionally and take a picture of your picture?
We have that all the time. Even though we have signs, please don't photograph or touch the art. There are people that love to just, they've got to touch it. They've got to touch it. Yeah. So,
you should be like, if you touch it, you buy it, and then put the touch price, and they're like,
there you go. Yeah, we do have a couple of our consultants that do say that to them with a big smile on their face. So,
I would love you to touch that. I'm going to make my commission this month. If you could just finger that painting a bit more.
There you go.
$200,000 picture. It'd be great. It's our top of the line. Thank you for touching it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, if your kids touch it too, that counts.
There you go.
You should have. I love it. Now, when you're presenting an art gallery, like you, I guess part of it is, what do the other art galleries sell? Their people have, it's a wallet share. People have $20K to go drop on something because they want to collect something original. Do you go around and say, okay, I'm going to price that same size at 20, whatever it is? Or do you go, you know what? This was really hard to get. And this is I know how good it's 30 here. And is that the mindset? You're like, no, actually they're at 20. We're going to price ours higher because it'll be more valuable. Like only the elite shop here kind of idea.
We do limited editions, and we start out in the early range of the edition. They're at a lower price point, and every 10% they sell through, the price goes up, if that makes sense. So when it gets towards,
you're just creating scarcity. Like, hey, get it early or it's going to go up. I got it.
That's correct. So and it's interesting you asked that question. My mindset was, a lot of people ask me about my competition. In Park City, there are, I think, 5 other photographers, maybe even 6. And I've told my staff many times, listen, they run in their race, we're running ours, right? I don't want to walk in there. I don't want to see what they're doing necessarily, how they're pricing it, because when people walk in here, they're coming into what is my vision, how I've created my piece. And if they want that, they'll buy it. If they want something from someone else's gallery, I want them to buy what resonates with them, right? What touches their heart in such a way. So I've been very careful not to be one where I just get absorbed. What's someone else doing, right? I can't let them get a leg up. I think, no, I'll just run my race. Well, whatever.
Unless like your sales drop to 0.
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, what's going on? Did you see? Is art one of those industries that fuels the economy, or is it at least where you are, and maybe the clientele you're enticing? Is it recession proof, or do you feel it when the belt buckles tighten on everybody else?
Well, I guess fortunately in the last 8 years since I've been open, we haven't had a real tough time. I know we're probably in one at the minute. We're sensing at the moment the sales are a little bit down overall, but we're, some of my consultants, they speak to other galleries and they've, had the same sort of thing. But I think there is a price market where if you're too low, they're not selling. If they're too high, they're probably not selling. But there's a sweet spot where, obviously there are those in the population that they're not so much affected by the inflation rate. They
Right.
have some money to spend, and I think we're in that market, so it doesn't affect us greatly. Not that we've seen so far, and hopefully that'll continue to be the case. But I think we're priced in an area where we're at a market that people have some disposable income.
Do you ever get to the point where you're like, you have to stay high end, highbrow plan, but do you ever think, man, my art that I do is so beautiful, but I'm limiting it to such a small group? Do you ever have that kind of moment of, man, I wish I could get this to more people, but then you're like, that wrecks the brand of I can't go cheap. So do you struggle with that kind of that conflict?
Yeah, I do. And I remember when I was trying to work out how I was going to position myself, I even had thoughts of, what if I just said to somebody, because I want my work to touch people's hearts, right? And obviously there are people that come into the galleries and that's all they can afford is to look, right? And that's an unfortunate thing. And I had thoughts of, well, what if I have a business model? Well, pay what you can afford, right? And then I thought pretty quickly, well, I won't be in business too long, so I think that was the question you were asking, right?
It's just this feeling. I'm like, I'm definitely one of like, I love looking at it. I would love to have one, but I'm not. There's no way I'm getting CFO approval, nor would I have the extra cash at any point in my life right now to be like, I'm dropping 10K on a picture. What? Excuse me? Like, or what it would be. It's just not happening.
Sure.
Now, if you send me one, I will cherish it as if it's a 10K picture, and I will be like, that is a 10K picture that I did not actually pay for.
Yeah.
But if I sell it, I have to give it back to him because I wouldn't do that. Yeah. But the point is, I'm making a mild suggestion there. Maybe you should send me that horses one. I think
we do. Well, just on that, we do have smaller images. That from like $150 up to $500. We have images in that range as well. For some people don't have huge walls, right? Because my images take up big walls, or can do, and so we have. Wallet. Yeah, small walls. They're living in a small condo or something like that, so they can get a piece of art like that. So, yes, so we can cater to those people somewhat.
Unless you sign it, then it's 10K again. That's what I'm saying. And then now give me some rules here. If you're an artist, not rules, things to live by. So I always let people, if you're super rich, you're probably not watching this, to be fair. I want to inspire the entrepreneur here. So what are this is to the artist, and this could be, I'll say anybody who's doing, craft is probably the wrong word. Drawing, painting, photography. But even somebody like maybe a musician or something else, what do you recommend to them to get, like, if you want to be specific to more like the print stuff, what's their do's and don'ts? What would you say? Here are the 3 things you should do, and here are the 3 things you shouldn't do.
Yeah, good question. I come back to, it's all about getting your work in front of people, right? If you can't get your work in front of people, you're going to struggle to move it. That's for sure. And so, what's the best way you can get in front of people? And you've got to figure out what that is, and what your I guess ability to, is it to load a van up every week and go and set up at a marketplace? And depends what you're trying to do. Some people, they just want to, their art might be their second outlet. They say, well, okay, I want to make my living out of being a bank manager or a banker during the week, but I want to get in my creative space and do some art, and selling a little bit of that might be enough to make me happy. For me, that wasn't the case. I wanted to, basically have my life lived around that. Fortunately, I can do that, but without being able to have the courage, I guess, and and a little bit of financial backing behind me at the time to be able to sign that lease, right? And when I say sign that lease, it's I'm signing that, shaking my hand.
Yeah, 'cause you're like, I'm covering how much, and if I don't sell anything, it's bankruptcy,
absolutely.
baby.
Absolutely. So, I certainly had some moments where my hands are shaking, and
But to be fair though, before you signed that, you had sold things at a higher value somehow, where you had some kind of market indicator you were good.
yeah,
You didn't
I
go in
had,
blind day one or year one going, I got this, and then you go out there and it's just like,
okay. So I had never sold an image in the USA. I'd sold some in my homeland, right? So, and I'd won some international awards, and I've won over 100 international awards for my work now. But back then, it was just Aussies, that I'd sold to. I shouldn't say just, that was my market that I'd been in. But in the US, I'd never sold anything. So here I am trying to break into the American market, not understanding it. And I'm signing a big lease for 4 years and putting the house on the line. So
your wife is not a bad person, I think.
I have an
I mean,
incredible,
that's a lot. Like, you're putting house on, it's 4 kids, right?
4 kids. Yeah.
Man,
So
I'm not going to Vegas with you. Right? No way. Because going to Vegas with you is like real gambling. Like, well, that's not even gambling. Let me tell you, gambling.
Well, yeah. And here's the thing. When I go to Vegas, mate, I don't gamble. I'm not a gambler. I'm not do it. I work too hard.
You didn't look at it as a gamble. That's why. Because you had, you believed in you. You saw there was a market for it. You had some social proof, so to speak, awards, had sold some things. I mean, at the end of the day, humans are humans. Americans have plenty of money left over, like a lot of them. And if you're living or in Park City, Utah, you have plenty of money for the most part. It's a calculated risk. And I think, I look at it like there's no way in hell. But then I have a daughter who likes to, draw. I'm like, what if she comes to me and goes, hey, Dad, I want $100K to sign a lease? I'd be like, have you won international awards? Have you talked to David? Have you gotten a coach? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm puckering. I'm like, man.
Yeah. And there's one thing I want to hit on here, if this can be an encouragement to others that are trying, whether that be your daughter or someone else, right? There are moments where, I thought, am I going to make it, right? And I believe there are so many businesses, not just art, just businesses in general, where people are this close to making it, but they can't see that extra inch or two that they need to get to, right? If they could have just held on for another month or another 2 months and had a big sale come in that would help them tide them over for 6 months or whatever that might be. I think that's a story that people don't recognize in their own lives, that they don't know that they were that close to making it, right? To have a major 100%.
There's, in marketing, I always say there's always a winter month or even the summers where people kind of check out and they stop buying and they get back on because they feel like, oh God, I've taken too much time off. And then holidays come. So you have these, the kid at the Game of Thrones, winter's coming, right? And it's coming, but then in those moments daily, you're like, why am I doing this? It'd be easier. I wish I just could be happy collecting a paycheck. But then you think about it like, nah, that's not going to make me. And you stay through it, and then you realize something about your business, or in art, at least my perception. I think a lot of people have been told, the starving artist, and so it's hard when you already have this kind of pre-construct that no one makes it, and that's why you're such an anomaly, because you have the skill and yet you did it, and it's and that's the inspiring piece to me, is that you've broken that mold. But if you had only sold it out of the back of your car or in the mall, I don't think you're here. I think you're working, and that's a side hustle.
No.
And so you said, if I'm going to do this, you got to be in the game. You got to be highbrow, and you got to be good. You can't suck and be highbrow. Like see those awards and stuff you won, right? You submitted for that. You took the time to figure out what awards can I chase.
Yes.
And I'm sure you applied for thousands and maybe won a few hundred or a few dozen. Fair enough.
Yeah, there's been a number that we've got in there, and thankfully we've been able to win a fair share, so it's been nice.
But when you did that, right, those become some of your initial social cred as well, correct? Like where Like, oh, he's
Yeah,
an internationally, I'm an internationally known artist, which allows you to a little bit more, oh, when people buy, they can be like, oh, he's internationally won. He's won all these
oh yeah,
awards. It's
yeah.
gonna be
That
great.
certainly has some credibility. Absolutely. Funny enough, some of those ones are not the sellers, right? So because you're being awarded those images by other photographers and other peers and so forth, so they might be often a lot of the things that in photographic competitions now, I actually look at them and even say, is that an actual photograph? Right? It's like how much work has been done in that? Is that how much of that is natural? So
Right.
a lot of awards I don't even bother now because it's not the way I want to present my work. But going back a few years ago when they're legitimate photographs, that's where I concentrate more on them. But yeah, sometimes they're not the ones that sell. The pieces that sell are when someone walks in and that touches their heart some way. And I had a unique experience. Well, not so unique, but it was a powerful moment in the gallery probably about a month ago. There's an image I have called Rolling Thunder. And there was a lady, beautiful lady in the gallery, and she just stared at it. And she just started streaming tears. And then she come and embraced me for about 10 to 15 seconds. And I was sharing that story with my wife, and I said, well, why people get so emotional? I said, well, obviously it's resonated. It's taken her to a place in time, an experience, or something that has connected her with that image. And I said, that's the power of art, right? Somehow people have made that connection, and it has moved them in such a way that they say, I've got to have that. And that's a beautiful moment, right? That is a super, and I feel like I'm doing my job, right? And yeah, that's where I feel like, if I can give glory to the Creator, that's what I want to do, and touch people's hearts, right?
I love it. But you talk about Genesis. It's funny. My daughter got her first Bible the other day at a church camp, and we actually read that line out loud, the first line of the Bible. So I thought that was
Yeah,
so you quoted that.
incredible.
And it is some of the most beautiful one. Which of your art pieces has sold not by revenue, but sold is by far the most popular?
One called, well, it's an image called Daddy Daughter Date, which has actually become my logo. And that was an image I shot with my beautiful daughter, Emily, when she was 12. She's 19 now. And the next day I shot the same image called Nothing But Blue Sky. When I say the same image, it's an image of a big tree and a little tree up on a hill in Utah near our home. And the second one was a beautiful blue sky behind. That's called Nothing But Blue Skies. But we've sold more of those than any other image. And the interesting thing about that is I travel the world to find beautiful images, right? I'm up to 44 countries, I think, now. And these images were shot 300 meters from where our house was in Utah. And they're my biggest sellers, and it's become my logo. And it's just a wonderful story behind it as well. So it's one of those images that I talk about where it touched people's hearts. And I've had many grown men standing in front of me as I share that story where they're, trying to wipe away the little tears coming out of their eyes. So special moments when that sort of thing happens, So I'd encourage your daughter to keep using her gifts. Keep refining
I will. And
her
I
gifts.
think I was telling, and I think the entrepreneurial lesson, and this is actually, you can apply, I think, this to any kind of business. If you have a story, that in fact creates a differentiator. And when someone can relate to that story, daddy-daughter certainly makes sense. And so if you had a mother-son one, which is harder for you to tell because you're not the mother, but the daddy-daughter one all day long, like I remember my daughter, this like that, a metaphor, and especially if he's buying it for a wedding or it's something whatever it is, like that's why that sells, is because almost every father can relate to it. And if they got the checkbook out and they're having that moment,
get
it. How big do you want it, baby?
So, yeah, absolutely. And that's where it comes back. Does it touch their heart? Does it move them enough?
When you're in the gallery itself, what are there? So I have a few questions on just from like a experience, and I think, and I dive into this because I think some people forget some of the nuance. So if you have a gallery and you don't really put the right music on, or have the right smells or lighting, it loses some of its effect. But also, if you have a salesperson and you see someone who's, like you said, studying a painting, they're just into it, how long are you waiting? So talk about some of the, before a salesperson, you're like, do not go up to that person ever.
Yeah.
Let them come to you to ask about it. Cause like
Yeah.
they're going to buy it. You don't think you have to sell anything, I'd have to guess. So talk about like your in-store experience. Cause that's when the moment happens. They make a decision and you can screw it up or like, so talk to me about how you work through that experience.
Yeah. And that's an interesting one, in the fact that, you know, each sales consultant has their own style, right? But what I do ask them to do is they get up and they welcome everybody, make them feel at home, right? And just introduce them to the, you know, to the artist, to the gallery and the work, and say, you know, more than happy to tour you around and share some stories, or let you wander. And if you have some questions, we'd love to answer those for you. So there's a few things we want to do, as I say, in the upfront, but generally we let them walk through, and then, you know, we'll see them gazing at a particular image, and then we'll, you know, re-engage with them if that's what they want to do, and share the stories around that image, and you know, what can be done to help them get it in their home and so forth. So it's, yeah, whichever way, I come back to, you know, what I said earlier on, that we want to make it an experience for people, whether they decide to collect that or not. They're walking out the door with a wow.
Well, and they may come back at a later time when, you know,
absolutely,
didn't see the one that really resonated with them. And I think just like in it, like even that, does the experience in Park City, you know, is it like the one in Naples? Do they have similar experiences of how they greet, the kind of music you play,
absolutely.
the lighting?
We have the standard. It's got to be the same. We've got to give people the stories behind the images are all the same. The way we greet and treat people is the same. That's my culture, right? So, you know, if you know, when we have people come in, the culture is we're a team. First of all, we want to create an experience and a wow factor for everybody that walks in that door. We want them to leave with a bigger smile than they walked in. And if they want to become a collector and they gracious enough to give us that honor, we want to work with them the best we can. We do have on many images, but just for example, Daddy Daughter Date and Nothing But Blue Skies that I spoke of, we have people coming back into, well, we have them coming in here now, say, oh, we're in your Park City gallery and we've been wanting those for years. We want to buy that now. Or they come back into the Park City gallery and say, we want to buy those for the last 5 years. Now's the time, right? So it's just, you know, loving on people and giving them a wonderful experience, and give them a reason to come back, right? Because if they're not treated with respect at the time, they're not coming back.
They're not, and especially when you're like, you know, it's an investment, right, into what they're doing. Do you take it the whole way with packaging, and then so they don't screw up hanging it? like how far do you take the experience for them?
Yeah. So when local people purchase the art, we normally would have them installed for them. But when we ship internationally, obviously we can't do that, or to other states. They're boxed and packaged very, very well, and comes with all the hanging hardware that's needed. They have a set of gloves which they can hold the art, so they're not putting their fingers on it, and instructions on how to hang that. We encourage people to get a professional installer if they're, you know, don't have a handyman sort of trait with it, which I don't. So, you know, but it comes with all the gear, right? Occasionally, unfortunately, because we have to use shipping companies and so forth, and you know, every now and then a forklift goes through an image and we have to replace it or whatever it is. But everything's insured, and you know, I think 99% of the time it gets there in perfect condition and ready to hang on the wall, and people are so grateful. And then they send us a photograph of our image hanging on their wall, and that's a real treat, right? And they'll give us a nice review and that sort of thing, and that's all helpful.
That's great. Well, as a marketer, I'll tell you that's super. And I asked that because the reason I asked that is because when you thought about your brand, and I have to guess it didn't all come at once, and you've improved the processes, but you've thought through the front end of the experience you need to have, how teams will need to interact, which to me sounds like the hardest part of the business is making sure you get the right, you know, so they have their own styles. But at the end of the day,
Yes.
it's your brand that's wrecked if their style is off.
Correct.
And so
Correct.
all the way down to, man, this thing showed up in the cheapest packaging possible. And if you didn't do it right, with that, brand wrecked.
Yes.
So it's like,
Yeah.
if you didn't send the gloves, oh, I got it
Yes.
dirty. Well, there's no way to clean it. And now they're like, what do I do? And now you're like, I don't really want to send them another one, but now you're like, so my point is, you taking the time. Did that all come at once, and you in as much as you could, or was it discovered just through just being in the industry? You just like, you need these things.
No, it's things that we've learned along the way, or what would add an extra wow, right? When someone receives their package, they're excited, but oh wow, they've got some gloves in, so I don't have to get my sweaty hands on the art. Things like that. So we're always looking to add another nice touch to the whole experience, because that experience really continues all the way up until that art's hanging on their wall, right? And people, oh, I want that here by such and such a date because we've got a housewarming party, or if we can make that happen, we'll make that happen. Sometimes they're asking for it for 2 days before the event, and that's a bit hard to do, right? But where we can, we will bend over backwards to get a collector their piece of art as soon as we can, so they can have it there for that special moment that they're trying to enjoy, or they want to share that beautiful piece of art that spoke to them in such a way. They want to share that with their friends. We'll try and do that. So all about making people.
Yeah, no, I love it, and you've thought it through. And so the last part I want to ask is, and it's kind of like where I look to kind of help and connect people. And I know a couple, and one in particular is a friend of mine, but he's a designer. People hire him to do a room.
Yes.
Do you work with them, and is that like a zero cost of sales way? Like they get commissions for, like, how do you work, or do you work in that environment for one? And tell me about that, how you've set that up for me a little bit from a growth standpoint.
We do have relationships with designers. It's a valuable part of our business. And the way I look at that is that, there is leverage in the respect of, when some individuals come in, that's just, they're individuals. But when you're dealing with a designer, they might have 10 clients that they're working with. Right.
So another designer friends.
We see that as a valuable part of our business model, that we work closely with them. We help them do client rendering, so they send photographs of the walls, and we can show them images in different sizes and so forth. So we work very closely with designers. That's a big part of our business, and one that we want to continue to grow. Those relationships are important. We can take a lot of the heat off the designers by doing those renderings, and yes, they do earn a fee for that as well. That's part of our business model. We've had great success with that, and something we want to continue to build on.
So I think about the audience who's going to be in this, besides artists who could be inspiring to become an entrepreneur. That's another business people say, so one of I think the angles with the designer is, if you have access to someone another designer doesn't have, do you limit that access to certain designers that have a certain philosophy, or is it anybody who can sell the art kind of approach?
Yeah, we haven't narrowed it down where we're saying, no, we don't want to deal with you or anything like that. We're not doing that. If someone is, we want to make sure they're high end in terms of the way they treat their clients and that sort of stuff. And normally in designer business, that's exactly what they are, right? They're out there working hard for their clients. So, we just want to jump in there and help and support them wherever we can. And it's a lot of fun doing it too. We get to go to some nice homes and do some renderings, and we meet great people, right? So like anything in life, it's all relationships, right? How well we treat and respect each other, how we can work with one another, and everyone has a win, everyone's happy. That's what makes the world go round, in my view.
Yeah, well, I like the some Christ-like principles you've put into your art and life, of treat others with respect, and it just by the sheer force of your business, you have to have the model you have to survive as an artist. You have to cater to an affluent, very affluent crowd, right? Though I know that internal struggle would be like, man, I wish everyone could enjoy this. And I'm sure sometimes your brain gets working like, how can I do this? Like I know that probably struggle is there. At the same time, it's like, well, that's the game you have to play here. So I really thank you for all the time you've put in this. I know we're a little longer than we normally go. I find what you do fascinating because you don't meet a lot of people like you that can do it.
Yeah.
It's it's like a unicorn. Like if you had a horn on one of those horses and you were also like striving, I'd be like, it would make sense. Totally makes sense. Or if you were on it shirtless with a unicorn riding that thing, that wild horse, that would have been a good shot as well. But that would probably be illegal to touch the horse.
Yeah. Well, I want to say that my success comes down to one. I believe that God has given me a gift to see His creation and portray it in such a way that touches people's hearts. But besides that, the support of my family and some key people that I surround myself with, and my wonderful staff and team, they make it happen, right? I get to live my dream because people are in here making people smile and moving that product. So I couldn't do it all by myself. It's a huge effort by everybody. And I just wish more people could get to live their dream. And if this message here or podcast can be an encouragement to people, I would be over the moon about that.
Yeah, and I think are you doing? Let me finally. Are you doing any give backs with teaching, communities or anything like that? I'm not saying artwork, but like doing some guest speaking at a college or anything like that, with this inspiring story.
I'm open to that sort of stuff. I got to be very wary, Thomas, because I'm quite an emotional guy, right? And I've got endless stories here that would just get me in tears. I just can't talk of how wonderful experiences that I've had have been, and when I try and relay those, it just moves me to tears to a point I cannot talk. It was like the moment when I married my wife. I was up trying to say my vows and I couldn't get them out, right? Because I was just overwhelmed. That was 29 years ago. So I just got to be careful of what thankfully we didn't touch on things today that made me speechless, but
I feel like I cheated myself out of an opportunity to get you to cry on camera. Damn it.
I'm glad I didn't, mate. I would have been a mess. But mate, I like to be an encourager, and wherever I can do that, I'm happy to do it. So
I love that, by the way, that you admit that, and honestly, I think me going deep with you on this podcast wouldn't serve the function of this isn't how to find your inspiration as an artist. The assumption is you have it. This is about the business of taking art and making your dream life about it. So I probably would have done a disservice if I had gotten you to that level, because you clearly have emotion, but the point is, I think that's another thing with just anything. Like you got to know what level to take things. And so if you're like, crying your eyes out about a painting or a photo to somebody, and you're like, this guy just isn't connecting with me, it wouldn't work. But if someone really is like telling this story and you get into it and you're like authentic with it and it's the right moment, you sell the painting. You can't just do it to do it. You got to do it because it's got a function and purpose. And I think when people think of their art, you also have to have reality of where you are in the circumstances. And I think sometimes artists struggle with that reality of, well, if you don't like it, leave. Like, don't ever do that. Just think. No. Eccentric behavior, I guess, is my point. But I appreciate you not crying today, so we can get through this today. And you, if you had though, and your team had handed you a tissue on the other side, I would have thought that'd been pretty cool, though. I will say.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate enough. I have my eldest son working with me here today, and he would have done that. Cool. He knows what it's like.
Dad balls up.
But
it's the Notebook. He's seen it. He's like, oh God, we're watching the Notebook tonight. Dad's gonna be crying all week. Oh, why does he do this? Yeah. Thank you so much, David and son behind the camera. I really appreciate it. Finally, if they want to see your art, what's the name of the galleries? Or David K. Beavis? Is that how?
Yeah, David K. Beavis Fine Art, 314 Main Street in Park City, Utah, and we're at 491 Fifth Avenue South in Southwest Naples. Awesome. Beautiful.
Is it walk-in or is it appointment only for you guys?
No, it's walk-in. Walk-in. We're summer hours at the moment. We're open till from 12 till 10 each day. We get a lot of traffic in the evenings. Daytime's a bit quiet at the minute just because it's so hot here. Park City, we're open from 10 till 7 or 8 p.m., I believe. Nice and cool in the summer months and the summer evenings there in the mountains. But yeah, come in, and I'm sure our consultants will treat you well and give you a wonderful experience. And yeah, anything we can do to help people collect and put a smile on their face, we're all about it. Appreciate you, Thomas.
You're buying it.
There you go.
Don't touch that paint, you're buying it. Okay, maybe that's your technique. You just get sticky fingers. You give them like some peanut butter walking in, like sign the agreement.
That's it. That's
Thank
it.
you, David. Hang out for 1 second here, David Beavis. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll come right back. Head out to that green room without candy in it or anything else that's sticky. But thank you.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
You as well. I'll be right back. Hey, listen, thank you so much for anybody who's made it this point. Like a little longer episode today, but it's a rarity to find someone like David who has so much talent. And you got to check out his website here. I'll put it up again. You just, when you see certain photos and the moments, you realize sometimes yourself, I couldn't capture that. I would never even think to capture that. But then you see how it's done and how well it's been. It's just amazing. And it's real art. It's not, AI or modified. It's in the moment, real nature. So real, and the business behind it's beautiful as well. So congratulations to all the success for David. And thank you so much once again, David, for coming on. Listen, get out there, go unleash your entrepreneur. Don't just cut the ties to the shit holding you back and just go do it. You'll be much happier for it. Win or lose, you'll be been in a better spot in your life if you just try. So thanks for listening. Until next time, go unleash your entrepreneur.